Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. And don't forget to check out the Swag Cave. That link is in the podcast description. Residence Branding Company, the official swag provider for the Man Cave Podcast. A couple days removed from being at sultry Lambeau Field for close to the end of October here. It was a hot one at Lambeau Field on Sunday. So let's talk about the game. Well, first off, actually it's kind of second off, but second half of the episode, we're going to talk some Badgers because the Badger football team have a big game with Penn State coming to Camp Randall. So RJ Cardinal's back, and we're going to talk to him about the Badger football team. They're coming off of another win, 3 wins in a row. Could they pull off the upset against Penn State at Camp Randall? So that's coming up in the second half of this episode. I want to lead things off talking about that Packers win against the Texans. But first, I know we don't talk a lot about punters, and punters usually isn't a sexy position to talk about in that, but that kid's a lot of fun to watch. Just to see, the beautiful spirals that guy's got. At a game, you can actually see it in the air. You want to talk about, special teams coaches out there, kicking coaches, just got to be salivating watching some of that kid's punts. For, the tight spirals, the hang time, the distance on that thing. His warm-ups are so fun to watch just because he's just cranking them out there. So, but I know, again, it's Tuesday. We usually do this on Monday, but I want to talk a little bit about what we saw on Sunday with you peeps. So, Packers with that victory against the Houston Texans, 24-22. Packers, it sure seemed like, tried multiple ways to give that thing to Houston. Early on, you had the interception that was almost returned for a pick six. Packers D holding it down, only giving up a field goal. You had another interception by Jordan Love, throwing high across the middle, too high for Christian Watson, and then the fumble on the punt. Not sure why Keyshawn decided not to catch that one, but ended up hitting Corey Ballantyne, and then Houston's able to recover it. So, you had 3 turnovers. Packers didn't get any turnovers. So Houston won the turnover battle, plus 3. But Green Bay, less than 2 minutes, ball in Jordan Love's hands, goes down with just one timeout, goes down, puts them in field goal position. And, of course, because that's how it's scripted, you have your new kicker who just signed a few days prior, Brandon McManus, who, one of the things we talked about, very good from that 40 to 49-yard range. Narvis and Anders in their early careers, not that good in that range. Pretty poor. We talked about it earlier, right? To be a kicker in this league, got to be like high 80s, 90% in that range, 40 to 49. Brandon McManus did it. Where was that field goal? It was about 45, right? 45 yards. Made the first one, and then low snap, Daniel Whelan again. Perfect. Just the operation there. Picks it up off the ground, sets it up. I had a lump in my throat when I saw that. McManus makes it, and then goes and does a Lambeau leap over there. Packers walk it off. I want to talk a little bit about this defense, though. What a defensive performance. Again, them being put into some tough spots, tough situations, in terms of like field position and such. And I was super impressed. Yes, there's still stuff to clean up. Mixon ran for over 100 yards in this game. I think Quay Walker getting hurt and having that concussion affected their run defense there a little bit. But this is from Matt Schneidman I saw yesterday. This stat, this number, this statistic. The Packers sent 5 or more pass rushers on only 17.2% of C.J. Stroud's dropbacks. The lowest team blitz percentage in the NFL is 17.1. But if you remember when we talked about it last week, C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback going up against the blitz. So we talked about getting home with 4-5 guys. Right? So the Packers sent 5 or more on only 17.2. But the Packers pressured C.J. Stroud on 51.7% of his dropbacks. They were getting home with 4 guys, with their front 4. And as Schneidman noted, the highest team pressure rate in the NFL is 42.6. One of those dudes who had himself a game, Rashawn Gary. And again, that was a player we highlighted. He was my key player to watch, or player that had to step up. Rashawn Gary winning one-on-ones, getting home, without bringing extra blitzers. And Rashawn Gary, probably his best game of the season. 6 total pressures, had a sack, 3 quarterback hits over there too. I mean, Rashawn Gary was pretty darn active in that game. And you got to tip your cap to him. And I know he had one of the highest Pro Football Focus grades from this game too, which, again, it fits the narrative. It fits what the eye test, I should say, is probably the best way to go about it. Eric Wilson, 2 sacks. I mean, that kid was all over the place. 4 TFLs, 4 tackles for losses. He had the highest Pro Football Focus grade, 82.7. Quay Walker had a 76.8. Rashawn Gary came in at number 3, 74. Xavier McKinney, 69.1. Javon Bullard, 66.1. In case you were wondering, the bottom 5 defense, Lucas Van Ness, I mean, that he's not trending in the right direction. I want to get to him and another player coming up here in just a sec. Edrin Cooper, TJ Slayton, Preston Smith, and Colby Wooden. So I know we have been kind of talking a lot about Rashawn Gary the first few weeks of the season, and where is he at? You're not seeing him sacking the quarterback a lot, maybe not generating a lot of pressures. We've been critical. I've been critical about it. But now you kind of look at a trend here, and you look at these last couple weeks, and I think we got to shift that talk or that narrative to, all right, where in HE double hockey sticks is Lucas Van Ness and Preston Smith right now? I think it's fair to say we want a little bit more from those guys, because we haven't seen a ton, especially Preston Smith. And I know Preston Smith's name is coming up in some trade rumors I saw. Was it Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter? One of those guys. But there were some trade rumors that teams have been inquiring on Preston Smith. I don't know what Green Bay would get in return. Probably just draft pick there. But, I mean, when you look at just box score scouting it, Preston, yeah, he's got 2.5 sacks. But just 6 solo tackles. Lucas Van Ness, 1 sack, 11 solo tackles. And I know that there's more to it than just those box score numbers and that. But, in the game against Houston, Preston Smith, 1 tackle. Lucas Van Ness, 2 tackles. For a defense that really likes to rotate, trying to keep those guys fresh, I think it's fair to say now it's like, okay, for all that energy and all that talking that we were focusing on with Rashawn Gary and such, and not to, say like, okay, Rashawn Gary's fully back after just 1 game. But I think it's fair to say, okay, Preston Smith and Lucas Van Ness, where are you guys at? We want to see a little bit more from you guys right now. But defensively as a whole, when you look at what this defense did against Houston, is it fair to say that this is the best defensive performance of the season from Green Bay? I think so. It's up there for sure. Yeah, Mixon ran for over 100 yards. And sure, C.J. Stroud didn't have Nico Collins. That's a big loss in the receiving department. But still, to be able to hold a quarterback to under 100 yards passing. You know, you have a secondary coach by trade as your defensive coordinator right now. And, you know, that was a game that you could just kind of tell. And then when you kind of relook at it and reanalyze, it's like, yeah, you could tell our defense coordinator, you know, secondary coach there. I mean, it was fantastic. It was an aggressive approach. I mean, they were getting home. You want to talk about scheming? It sure seemed like C.J. Stroud was getting a little confused out there from what he was seeing and what was actually being, you know, ran from a defensive side. Little trying to confuse. I thought Green Bay's defense and Jeff Hafley did a great job of mixing up looks and coverages and confusing C.J. Stroud and such. But that, I think you're starting to see now, you know, this defense, and we mentioned it a couple times here, but I think we're starting to see this defense, or we are seeing this defense, and specifically Jeff Hafley, settling in into, okay, these are my guys for this particular situation. These are my guys who are, you know, I'm going to roll with Keyshawn and Jair on the outside now. You know, Evan Williams, he's back there. Bullard's going to be more of the slot nickel, playing towards the line of scrimmage. He's got a better feel for his players. He's got a better feel for who does what really well, or maybe who struggles here and there. But Jeff Hafley's I think now, and for the last couple weeks, he's got it. He's in that rhythm. He knows what players can do what players can't do what. And we've talked about how this defense, just like in the second half, has been shutting things down. Not allowing a ton in that second half. Outside of, you know, Philly, what was it, 14 or 17? I think it was 14 in the second half. But even in this game against Houston, 3 points. 3 points in the second half. And it was that field goal, that go-ahead field goal, with 1:44 left. Whatever Gatorade, water, Jeff Hafley, whatever he's got for his second half calling, whatever this defense has for their second half calling, it's working. It's absolutely working. So, I mean, it's fun to watch, isn't it? I don't know if we can say after 7 games, dominant defense in that right now, like straight up. But it's trending in that direction. And it's fun to watch, and rightfully so. Matt LaFleur after game had 3 game balls to give. Gave one to Daniel Whelan, gave one to Brandon McManus, and he gave one to Jeff Hafley. And I thought it was an interesting point, good point from Matt LaFleur. If you didn't watch the video, he noted Jeff calls a very aggressive defense, but that's because he trusts you guys. He's an aggressive play caller on the defensive side. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it seems like right now, more times than not, it's working right now. And when you look at where this defense is in terms of, if you want to look at like rankings and such, okay, yards per game, they're still middle of the pack in total yards per game now. Defensive passing yards given up, they're about middle there. But they're only giving up 203.9 yards through the air. You look at these numbers, and it's a little bit different this year. You know, you're thinking a team that's only allowing 203.9 yards through the air. That's not bad. Right now, that's middle of the pack. Baltimore's dead last, 287.1. Minnesota's third to last. A lot of that, though, is probably because teams are playing a little catch-up and throwing the ball a little bit more. But where Green Bay's right up there too is those points allowed per game, 20.4. Offensively, a lot of the talking is right now, if you go what's trending, Jordan Love, if you go on social media and such, you're starting, and this has kind of been popping up the last couple of weeks, but it really kind of popped up from this game for a couple of examples here. One, the interceptions, but you're getting the comparisons to Brett Favre is where I was getting over there. The gunslinger mentality. So you're starting to get more of those comparisons that he's more Favre than Rodgers and such. So you have the interceptions as one case, but also that throw to Tucker Kraft. I don't know how Tucker Kraft caught that. I don't. First of all, how that missed the defender's fingers, but to not get distracted by that, Tucker Kraft, dude, I love Tucker Kraft, but that was an amazing catch, great throw too, and then up the sideline to Dontavian Wicks. Just dropping it in the bucket over the top like that. That was pretty darn cool. And then the third one to Josh Jacobs. It just felt like, because of all the talking this season, apparently Matt LaFleur promised Josh Jacobs, I'm going to get you your first receiving touchdown of your career. It almost felt like before that first down, it's like, okay, are they really going to try to give it to Jacobs and are passing? First one, Jacobs, he got tackled right away, but then they go back to him and he got it. But anyways, you're getting that comparison a lot with Love and Favre, and I get it and I understand it. He does have a little bit more of a gunslinger mentality than Aaron Rodgers does. There's no question about it. Throwing in a little bit more tighter situations. Whether that's because he's got the trust in the world for his teammates, or he's got the trust in the world that his arm can make that throw. It's probably a little bit of both at this point in time. But I feel like at times, some people are using the Favre comparison as a negative, where it's trending like, oh, he's more Favre. And it feels like, and I don't know if it's inadvertently or if it's on purpose, but it feels like at times people are using it as a negative, and I get it. The turnovers, they got to cut out. They got to cut out. There's no question about it. Turnovers got to cut out. Okay? But Favre wasn't a bad quarterback either. For a lot of the poor throws, there were some really good throws, and just that mentality of like, we're never out of it. So I don't know if I would fully say he's more all Favre in that. I think he's got wrinkles of a little bit of both. Let's put it this way: Jordan Love is Jordan Love right now. I get comparisons because they give you an idea of how a player is playing or who a player reminds you of this. But let's be real. Jordan Love is Jordan Love. Jordan Love is not Brett Favre. Brett Favre was Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love is Jordan Love right now. Does he have elements of each of those guys' games? Yeah. Throw it in the pot, and you make it, and you mix it up, and you got Jordan Love. So there's no question. Some of those throws, some of those tight throws, some of those decision-making stuff, got to clean that up. No doubt about it. But when he makes throws like he did to Tucker Kraft or Dontavian Wicks, it's like, oh, yeah. There you go. There you go right now. But boy, was that a sweet throw. Whew. Even for throwing a couple picks, Jordan Love finished with the fourth highest grade from Pro Football Focus. Bull Melton. Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs has I think, strongest hands on this team. I don't know how many slant routes that guy had in that game, but he had 4 of 5 contested catches. They were thrown in their tight windows, tight coverage, and he came away with them. Romeo Doubs, that's why I use the term possession receiver, and I don't mean that in a negative thing. It's just like, that's a guy that you can throw across the middle, or we've seen him make some deep plays, but he's, in my opinion, for all these talented receivers in this group, this is the guy who's the most aggressive at the catch, strongest hands. Like, you feel like you're going to throw it in tight coverage, Romeo's going to come away with it. But Romeo got second. Zach Tom, third highest grade, as we mentioned, Jordan Love, and then Ben Sims over there. The dudes with the lowest, this is again too where Pro Football Focus maybe doesn't always give you the greatest numbers there, but they had Tucker Kraft as one of the 5 worst offensive players. And did he do a lot outside? Touchdown catch. He also had a big catch going down the sideline later in the game. Yeah, probably not. But there's other parts where he affected the game. So, again, Pro Football Focus, in my opinion, is a tool, a part of the toolbox. But Jane Reed, apparently, according to Pro Football Focus, worst grade. Then it was Christian Watson, Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, and then Tucker over there. But overall, to kind of wrap everything up, huge win. At home against a team that was coming in with 1 loss, one of the better teams in the NFL, not just the AFC, but in the NFL, to overcome 3 turnovers where a couple of them were deep within your own territory, and where your defense, who was number 1 takeaways, you didn't have any takeaways. So Green Bay, I mean, you were -3 in the turnover. To be able to come back from that, or to be able to weather that storm, I should say, and get the victory at home. Not playing your best ball overall on the offensive side. Not playing your best ball. But because your defense kept you in that game, allowing the offense to make some plays, to come away with some touchdowns, where it never really got out of hand, right? Even with those turnovers, it never got out of hand. I think a lot of this credit goes to the defense for this Packers win. It was impressive to watch. And I said a little bit earlier, it was kind of a weird game to watch. It was, I don't know the best way to describe it, but it was just kind of weird, because it felt like Houston wasn't doing a whole lot. And when you look at they weren't doing a whole lot in terms of the passing game. They weren't doing a whole lot, but it was just kind of hanging around. Green Bay was just like, here we go, here's another pick, there's a fumble. But then they take the lead. It had that weird vibe. I felt like Green Bay could have almost ran away with it if they weren't going to turn the ball over. But because they turned it over 3 times, found themselves in a hole with 1:44 left, but able to drive it. And, of course, because that's how you have to write the script in the NFL, your kicker who came in just a couple days earlier hits the game winner. But a big win. Big win to stay 5-2 and going up against a premier opponent, too. But please, for all that is good in this world, do not overlook Jacksonville just because Detroit's coming up afterwards. All right, let's take a quick break. Word from our sponsors, and I'm going to bring in RJ Cardinal, and we're going to talk a little Badgers coming up after this quick break. Family owned and operated, Toyson Ford is proud to serve the drivers of the Chippewa Valley with some of the most popular vehicles around Wisconsin and the country. They're committed to giving drivers from across the area the best in customer service with a top-notch selection of brand new vehicles to choose from, as well as an extensive inventory of pre-owned crossover, SUV, and trucks. Plus, with their expert finance, service, and parts centers in-house, they strive to be your one-stop dealership for all of your automotive needs. Visit them today at 1000 Chippewa Crossing Boulevard in Chippewa Falls. You may think it's impossible to save some money with your grocery bill and at the gas pump all at the same time. But with Hy-Vee and Eau Claire, it's not. Take advantage of the great deals and the savings at Hy-Vee and Eau Claire while also earning money at the gas pump with Hy-Vee Perks. And don't forget, Hy-Vee and Eau Claire is your tailgating headquarters. Whether you're looking for food, beverages, or apparel to represent your favorite team, including your high school, Hy-Vee and Eau Claire has you covered. Tailgate this season with Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Let's switch gears here a little bit. First of all, I thought I saw on social media, RJ, were you also at the Packer game on Sunday?
Yeah, and I saw after the fact that you were as well.
Yeah.
So, we both saw a good game.
I was going to say, not a bad game to go. A little warm for October, but not a bad game to go to.
Better than the week before when it was raining and wasn't snowing, so even better.
Exactly. So, how excited are you for Camp Randall coming up on Saturday night with Penn State coming to town?
It's judging from where we were 3 weeks ago and where we saw a team that not sure how you either got out coached or stopped playing in the second half against USC, but it was something where we saw positives, and yet we were still very down on the team because of what our eyes saw. There wasn't a feeling of we can get out of this. Now, granted, we have been playing three of the bottom teams in the Big Ten these past 3 weeks, but still, you held them to 17 points? No, 13, 16 points in the last 3 weeks. So, I mean, the defense is coming around. They're beating teams and looking dominant against teams we're expecting them to, something we haven't seen over the past couple of seasons. So you're looking forward to having a number 3 team come to Camp Randall for a night game, and looking forward to seeing what the team can do against a perceived better talented team than them.
I was I don't know if this is an accurate comparison, but I remember going to it was back in 2008. It was a night game, Camp Randall, and Penn State was coming. I think Penn State was a top 5, maybe just outside top 5 ranked team. Wisconsin might have been at the back end of that, but Penn State just dominated Wisconsin with that. I think it was like 2008.
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah.
Who was the defensive player? Was it Maben for Penn State that year?
I was thinking it was Tamba Ali, but I just don't remember.
Yeah, I
feel like Tamba Ali was later than that.
Somebody was really good on the defense for Penn State.
Right.
And I think Joe Pa was in the box coaching or something like that too. So was that
the game he broke his leg at?
It might have. It was something with that too. But
I think that's the game. No, because I was on the field for that one.
Okay. Yeah, I know this was 2008.
Before that.
Yeah, because it was my final year in college. Now we're getting old. So
love those when you don't say the year.
Yeah.
In college you were. It was just that was the final senior year.
Yep, exactly.
I got to do the same thing.
But there was this I mean excitement and hope that hey, can Wisconsin, this team's coming in, they're undefeated, can we upset them and that sort of thing. Is there a feeling like this in Madison right now that hey, we've won 3 in a row, we're moving the ball, the defense is playing better. Is that excitement kind of creeping there for some Madison people that maybe Wisconsin can pull off this upset?
Judging by what we've seen the last 3 weeks, it does seem people are more positive about this might be that team of the 4 games we were talking about earlier in the year. This might be the one we can actually win, even though I guess at halftime of the USC game we thought that was going to be the one. But this is the game people are now pointing to and saying, well, I mean, you look at their schedule, Penn State's that is, and you don't see the dominance even out of Penn State. They got down big to USC, came back. They really looked like they were going through the motions against UCLA. The game was never in doubt, but they only they won by I think it was a touchdown or a little more than a touchdown, something like that. Or no, it was almost 2 touchdowns. Yeah, whatever. But they looked like they were just going through the motions against UCLA. Against Illinois, that's probably their best win so far this year. They won by 2 touchdowns, and their non-conference games. Bowling Green gave them everything they had, and they pulled out a touchdown in that one against Bowling Green at home. West Virginia, they beat by 12, and they blew out Kent State 56-0. But right now, Kent State is not a very good football team at all. So you're going down Penn State's schedule and being like, well, from what we've seen, it is a team that can be beat. But we also know that when we've gone against teams that are more talented than us, and even some that aren't, we've been in some dogfights and as well as just kind of got laughed off the field in a couple of those. So there is a little bit of hope, but still the fact that, well, who's going to show up? This team who can dominate the also-rans or the team that showed up for the first 4 weeks?
Mm-hmm. RJ, for the last 3 weeks or so, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what has been more impressive or maybe what has been more satisfying to see? And I know the quality of the competition factors into it, but has it been the offense, especially maybe the running game, or has it been the defensive play?
Yeah, it is kind of amazing the last 3 weeks. And, I mean, Rutgers and Northwestern both were, like, good rushing defenses, and Wisconsin put up some rushing numbers against them. I mean, almost ran for 200 yards last week. Then against Rutgers had another great rushing day, so much so that the scale is now tipped 58% to 42% in favor of run plays that Wisconsin has been going out of. We've seen the I formation come out. We've seen Riley Nowakowski go back to the original position he was recruited for a couple of times and line up as a fullback. Who really knows what's going on here anymore? It's just like I was saying that ever since Longo was hired, this isn't the air raid. It's principles of the air raid applied to the zone blocking scheme in the spread offense. That's what this is, and it's something that can change from game to week, all depending on your opponent. If opponents an injury happens or something like that, the scheme can even change in game if that's really what it needs to take. But it's we're getting run heavy, and it's something I think we've now seen. This O-line has even transformed. Jack Nelson, who was one of the more penalized offensive linemen in college football last year, is looking like the kind of guy Wisconsin recruited him to be. And we're seeing this O-line as a whole making huge strides from even where they were last year. And it's nice to see. They're averaging 194 yards a game on the ground. Still plenty of time left for that number to change, but last year was 161 yards on the ground. So, I mean, that's good to see. We're seeing a brand of football that, at least by, I think, Wisconsin fans, if we're going to lose by what's our bread and butter, it just wasn't meant to be, rather than, we're a pass-happy team and that's why we're losing. So that excuse is now out of there, but it's good to see that, but also that defensive side of the ball. I mean, you've given up 7, 6, and 3. It's or 6, 7, and 3, whichever way it went. But still, that's an incredible feat. And I mean, you held Northwestern to 209 yards, 127 yards rushing. Their leading rusher was the quarterback, and I mean, heck, it still led to 0 points. He got within the 5-yard line on almost 30-yard running play, but that was it. That was their big running play, and he had 55 total yards. So I mean, over half of his yards came on one play. You take that away, and you're below 100 yards rushing too. We gave them a short field a couple of times, but it still resulted in only 3 points. And Wisconsin just went down there, took care of business. Probably could have actually put up more than 23, or should have, but just the way the cookie crumbled. Your punter helped you out in field position when you couldn't do it yourself, and getting your backs away from everything. And once again, you had you had your receivers looking all right, but yeah, that running game really looking good with just under 200 yards. And Tyree Walker had 126 on hard-fought yards too. I mean, wasn't really breaking them for the big 10-yard gains we'd seen in the past couple of games, but still, I think heading into this game, Northwestern was the 9th-ranked rushing defense in the nation. So, I mean, putting up almost 200 yards on them, that's a good feat, no matter how you do it, whether it's in just taking what they give you, or if you can get those big chunk yards. And I mean, if he would, Walker was like a shoelace away from breaking that 25, something like that, from midfield down to the almost breaking that away to he was pick up 1 foot and that he would have been gone. But it was another good rushing performance out of him, and Cade Giacomelli just producing when he gets on the field, and still wondering why he doesn't get as many touches as he should. But that's another time, another story. But yeah, I really like them both from the defense and the offensive side of the ball. But it really does need to be picked up and carried on into what is perceived to be a better team than what Wisconsin is.
So speaking of that, RJ, if you were in those, coaches' offices and meetings and such, and, Fickle calls you up and said, hey, can you be a part of our game planning sessions? What would part of that game plan that you would like to see from Wisconsin going into this game against Penn State offensively and defensively? What would you kind of put together? What would you hope to see in that game on Saturday night?
I mean, really, just what we've seen the first half of the USC game and these last 3 weeks, a very mixed, a mixed bag of run and pass and these different formations, different go out and throw, if that's what they're giving you, just go with it. If you're getting the run, just go with it. Don't change it up for the sake of changing it up. If we see something on film that can exploit a weakness on that Penn State defense, you better go get it. It's one of those, don't overthink it. If Kahuna is a big playmaker, get him the ball. I don't care if anybody's feelings get hurt. I mean, we're past that now. I mean, we pared down the running back room, and it's looking better, and maybe it was the fact Walker wasn't the bell cow, and now he is, and we're seeing that pay off in spades. But once again, it goes right back to, some of those teams we are playing are not that good. So we got to see this O-line step it up and keep this attitude moving into a team that's better than us. It's really just all the confidence we've gained. Let's not change things up too much from what got these kids to where they are now at 5-2 after struggling to 2-2.
How much would this season almost change? I know it's the coaches poll here, but I know that Wisconsin was a team that got some votes, 3 votes in the coaches poll here. But I mean, a win like this would mean what for the rest of the season?
Well, I mean, it gets you bowl eligible right now, so that's good. That streak stays alive. And then you have 3 games left on your schedule you might be favored in. I think after last weekend, we are now favorited against Nebraska and Minnesota. If you win another one against Penn State next, Iowa following week, you might end up being favored going into Kinnick Stadium. And, already now after watching Nebraska just get obliterated by Indiana, that game all of a sudden looks winnable. Minnesota looks winnable. So if you go there, you're looking at possible 8-win season where people thought they'd be struggling to get to 6, and now we're 1 away from that. But most people also predicted we'd be 1 away from that. A lot of people, I think, picked Rutgers for some reason. I didn't at the beginning of the year. I thought we'd be either 5-2 or 6-1 right now, and that's where we are. I mean, you can't be too upset, especially since, if you're watching the games, you're seeing change. Whether you think it's against inferior opponents or not, we weren't winning these games last year. We didn't beat Northwestern last year, it's just obliterating 2 opponents and getting a 20-point win in Evanston, regardless of what stadium it's in. It's much more positive than than we've been the past couple of years. And a good way to derail that is going out there Saturday night and getting blown out at home. But it's something that even after last week's game, some of the eyes are turning into, I think we're going to have that 7 or 8 wins now, and we have a shot at having another winning season and going to another bowl game and extending both streaks and being some of the longest active streaks in college football.
All right, before I get to your prediction for this game, really quick, Badger men's hockey off to a 1-3 start, dropping both games against Ohio State. First one, it was a 1-2 loss in overtime, and then Saturday's game 1-2 loss over here too. They got Denver coming up here now too. But looking at that series against Ohio State, it was close, but I can't imagine 1-3 start with a lot of how they played last year. Would you say it's a little bit of a slower start, or that's a tough Ohio State team too?
That is a tough Ohio State team. Their goalie is pretty darn good. Wasn't able to make in either of the games this weekend. I was traveled up to Green Bay Saturday, so I didn't have to, wake up really early to get there on Sunday. But from people I know who attended the game, they said Wisconsin was the team that outplayed Ohio State for 6 periods, and that goalie was standing on his head making saves. So Wisconsin did lose a lot of talent. A lot of guys transferred out for some reason. I think it's the new team still getting used to each other. I know last weekend they were switching lines around to try to get something going. Just didn't work out. It'll be interesting to see how this season goes. Hastings hasn't had a losing season wherever he's been. But, when you had that kind of influx of the kind of individuals who could just take over a game, I don't think Wisconsin has that right now. And it's about this team needing to find out what their niche is to start chalking up some wins.
On the flip side, the women's team went to Minnesota. They came in with victories, 5-0 win, then a 4-3 win to remain so far undefeated on the season, 8-0 overall. And then they got Bemidji State's coming to town this weekend. I see it's already sold out for Thursday and Friday night.
Yeah, that's becoming more and more regular lately. I think that one probably could have been sold out even before you might have looked it up. It's a hard ticket to get now. But yeah, going up to Minnesota at 5-0 in a dominating fashion on Friday. I think Saturday they were just wanted to find out if they could come from behind. You're down 3-0 heading into in the second period. I think they got a goal before the second, and then we got 3 in the third. The team just like we talked about in their preseason stuff where they. Somebody was stopped themselves short of just saying we're looking to murder people,
Yeah.
And I think for one reason or another, playing close games against Ohio State all last year, beating them in the WCHA playoffs, but then losing to them in the national championship game, I think it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And it seems to be the right way, I guess, if you wanted to call it that, because right now, this team is getting all 20 first-place votes. They don't seem to be able to beat themselves. Even when you're down 3-0, you come all the way back and win 4-3. That still puts them at a plus 46 through their first 8 games in goal differential. They're outscoring teams 55-9, and 6 of those goals came in over 2 games against Duluth last week, but they won that one 7-3, and last weekend against Minnesota. So really this team, I think against better competition, we'll start seeing some tighter games, but there's definitely have and have not when it comes to Wisconsin women's hockey right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Excuse me. All right, before I let you go, prediction time. Penn State spreads at 6.5. Wisconsin win. Wisconsin cover. How do you figure this one out?
It's like one of those. I want to pick Wisconsin. I'll say Wisconsin, but we'll go in a little bit of a barn burner of 21-17 Badgers.
Ooh, I like it. Now, 4 weeks ago, I got to imagine that spread's double digits, right?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Especially the way Wisconsin's played, and maybe 14.5, 13.5, something like that. I wouldn't imagine it'd be 20 something or anything like that, or even approaching 20, even if this was the first game. But different. It would have been a different story a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. He's RJ Cardinal, our good buddy from Madison, Badger analyst. You're going to the game, right? You got to be going to the game.
Yep.
Bring home a W, okay?
I certainly will try.
All right, buddy. Hey, we'll catch up with you again next week, okay, bud?
Sounds good. We'll talk to you then.
You got it. RJ Cardinal joining us. All right, hey, that's going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Again, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. And as always, don't forget to check out that Swag Cave, the Resonance Branding Company Swag Cave. The link is in the podcast description. Until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.